Website is democracynow.org. Democracy Now! Produced by Mike Burke, Nate Balsar, Macho Newman, Shakespeare, Martinez, Sam Malcolm, Fanny Mr. Garvey, Karen Dina, Guster, Amy Littlefield, I'm Nina Goodman with Lauren Gonzalez. Thanks for joining us.
Wow. It's 1 o'clock, and you're listening to the one and only WMPG, W281AC, Gorham, Portland, for Southern Maine Community Radio, broadcasting live at 90.9 and 104.1 FM from the University of Southern Maine, streaming on the web at WMPG.org. And next up is Nonprofit Insider. I want to let you know first, though, that WMPG is supported by listeners and by the 2014 TD Halifax Jazz Festival, featuring St. Vincent the Hypnotic Brass Ensemble with Yazin Bey, a.k.a. Mos Def, Bill Frizzle, Guy Davis, Julian Priester, Betty Lavette, the Lee Boys, and more. July 4th through 12th in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. Just 3.5 hours from Yarmouth, Nova Scotia. Festival and ticket information are online at halifaxjazzfestival.ca. Quick look at the weather. It's partly sunny today, scattered showers, about 30% chance of scattered showers. Highs in the low 70s. Tonight, partly cloudy, lows in the mid-50s. Saturday, mostly sunny. Highs in the upper 70s, maybe even making into the 80s. Saturday night, partly cloudy in the evening, then clearing, lows in the mid-50s. And Sunday, another beautiful blue sky day, highs in the upper 70s. Light and variable winds only. Wonderful. I want to let you know that WMPG is supported by our listeners and by Port City Music Hall, presenting Robert Earl Keen, songwriter and storyteller, performing hits from his latest album, Ready for Confetti, live on stage at Port City on Friday, June 6th. Doors 8 p.m., show 9 p.m. Robert Earl Keen with special guest Andrea Davidson, Friday, June 6th at Port City. PortCityMusicHall.com.
Driving, music's blaring in my ears, engines roaring, the horizon's drawing near, pedal to the floor, no more beating the door.
Welcome to Nonprofit Insider. My name is David Unger, and I'm pleased to be hosting a show with executive directors and key people of local nonprofits here in Maine. I've worked in the nonprofit world for over 30 years. In those years, I've realized that the majority of the community does not know about the organizations that provide critical services we sometimes take for granted. Most times, we only hear about nonprofits when they send us a letter asking us for money once or twice a year. This is a chance to hear about the organizations that touch so many in our community. The opinions expressed on Nonprofit Insider are not necessarily those of WMPG, its staff and underwriters, or USM. Today we have Lisa Pohlman of the Natural Resources Council of Maine. Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
How are you?
Very well, thanks.
Good. Welcome to the show.
I'm delighted to be here on this beautiful day that hasn't quite started to rain yet.
See, we got another weather forecast in. She always wanted to give the weather. So, what does the NRCM do?
Well, the Natural Resources Council of Maine is Maine's leading environmental advocacy organization. So we have been around since 1959, and we were started by Maine people. The initial battle back in the early 60s was the protection of the Allagash River from a project that would have severely damaged it, and after that, it was designated as a wild and scenic river federally, and NRCM was born. Since that time, we have been involved in pretty much every major environmental struggle, environmental debate in all the years, everything from the bottle bill to the billboard ban to more recently taking out some dams on the Kennebec River and the Penobscot River, restoring the fisheries. We have 4 project areas. We've always got a lot of irons in the fire, so that includes protecting the Great North Woods of Maine, looking after our rivers and shorelines, trying to get toxic chemicals out of the waste stream, and also just trying to figure out how to live more sustainably, all of us individually. And then clean energy, which is actually how I spent my morning.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that. You were
yeah.
explaining it a little bit when
I'm just fresh off of a fabulous forum this morning that we co-hosted with the Portland Regional Chamber. And this week, the federal EPA announced what we consider to be the very biggest step the federal government has taken to address climate change, which is to start limiting the carbon pollution that comes out of power plants. And we had with us today the second in command at the EPA, a gentleman named Bob Perciasepi. We had Charlie Colgan from USM speaking, and we had Senator Angus King and several business leaders all talking about how the Northeast has actually already been limiting carbon pollution on our power plants, and we're going to be a model for the rest of the country. So not to worry, Maine, we're all set. This is just the rest of the country catching up to us.
When you talk about advocacy, okay, is that at the legislative level, at the grassroots level?
It's both, and that is the winning formula that NRCM has been employing all these years. You have to have the policy expertise, and we've got it. We've got a 6-person team that is at the State House through every legislative session, working in all 4 of the areas, and helping to develop the policy ideas, scoping out what we should be doing next on the clean energy front or the Northwoods front, making sure that the protections that we already have in place don't get rolled back. And so that has to be there. The legislators look to us for that, for that expertise and leadership. But then you also have to get the people of Maine rallied.
Right.
And we have a great outreach team. We have members in every legislative district in the state. And one of the biggest things I always like to say when I have an opportunity to talk about advocacy is it's just people getting involved in democracy. It's no more mysterious than that. It's you calling up your legislator and saying, I've heard about this bill and I think this is a good idea or a bad idea. And I'll tell you what, in Maine, 5 phone calls can push something over the edge one way or another. And that's what it takes. And it takes a lot of citizens to care and get up to speed even a little bit and be willing to send that email or make that phone call. And that's how we've been doing what we've been doing all these years.
One of the questions I've always had with groups like yours is, how do you determine what the right policy is? And what happens if the majority of the people, let's say in Maine, don't agree with the policy, but your experts do? How do you reconcile that?
Well, change is difficult. So let's take the.
Wait a minute. Are you saying change is
Change is difficult. No, it's difficult.
You heard it first here, folks.
And policy change is really difficult. But sometimes you do need policy. So right now, since we have already referenced it, the EPA have come out with these rules. Our senators are going to be really key in this struggle over whether these rules stand or not. And not necessarily the people in Maine, but certainly there are states elsewhere that are going to be much harder hit by this, the coal-producing states, for example, and they're going to push as hard as they can for this not to happen. And we just have to, what we can do is make sure our senators have our back. We have their backs, and we're behind them, and we're saying, this is good for Maine. This is good for our health.
But who determines whether it's good for Maine? I think that's the question.
Yeah. Well, it takes science, and it takes economics, and it takes research. It takes all of those things to get us to where here's a solution that we have to try out. And we don't always know what the outcome's going to be, but, that's policy research. And, I had my training at the Muskie School, and so we can go on about that for a long time. But, you check things out, you try things, you do the science, you do the math, and that's how we come up with it. And then you have to find where's the political will to make a move like that. And as you're saying, sometimes people start out and they're very resistant, and so you just have to keep making. And usually you have to make an economic argument, But certainly in Maine, an environmental argument is powerful too, because people in Maine really do understand that our economy and our environment are really linked, and we can't separate them here.
Right. No question about that. As a nonprofit, what are some of the challenges that you face on a day-to-day basis, because you're statewide and your scope is so large?
Well, we really want to feel connected and have people feel connected to us all across the state. And when you work in Augusta, you can feel like you're important, and then you can go someplace else and people have never heard of you. So it's always a challenge to make sure that you're working statewide and have all parts of the state in mind when you're at the State House. But it would be good if more people just knew who we were. So the challenge of communicating about what we are, making sure people understand that, and bringing more people in so that we can mobilize and make people aware of what the issues are. That's a constant challenge for us. And I would say, we're a membership organization, so that means that it's very helpful when people join us and give a financial contribution. And so that's a big part of my job, and it's a big part of our team's job to make sure that, right now we have 16,000 members and supporters, which means both people who've given us a financial contribution, but also people who've taken some kind of action.
Right.
And so that's a lot of folks, and that's great.
I'm working with a young startup membership group right now, and one of the things we're grappling with the value and benefit of membership. Mm-hmm. So what would be the value and benefit of being a member of the council?
Well, I think we're still people who like to feel like we're part of something for the most part. And so I think you get the value of feeling like you're part of something bigger than just yourself, and that your voice is stronger when you're in a big group of people than just all by yourself. And that has actually proven to be true over and over again. And, what you're getting is that expertise of our staff, some of who've been on our staff for 23 years, 17 years. I mean, there's a lot of depth there. And so there's trust. You can trust that, we have a proven track record of effectiveness. We have a proven track record of transparency and telling the truth and moving things forward. So you're getting the benefit of that. And then you're going to get a lot of emails and a lot of newsletters, and as much information as you'd like, and maybe a little more.
Right. One of my mentors taught me something very important about marketing like that, that you can send a mailing out and you'll be guaranteed that 50% of the people won't read it and 50% will read it. You can go over their house and read it to them, and only 50% are even going to listen to you.
Right. Well, the good thing is you can opt in to our emails.
Right.
You can sign up for our Action Alert Network, and I suppose you could sign off anytime you like. So,
for someone who's not been involved with you at all or never heard of you before, and I'm sure there are a lot of people, how do you affect their day-to-day life?
Well, in amazing ways that people don't know. I mean, Maine is a different place because NRCM has been here for 55 years. And I can say that having, been on the staff for 8 years and as a board member for 7 years before that. But I was not here in 1959. But the cumulative work of all these citizens of Maine all these years, I mean, we have restored our rivers. We have protected the Northwoods with Forest Practices Act, and we have the best bottle bill in the country, which means that there's we've got the highest recycling rate. We don't have billboards all over our roads like they do in other states. Our air, we unfortunately with our air we suffer from being downwind from all the coal-fired power plants someplace else. So that's why we have to work on these new EPA rules, but. There's just so many ways that, we have an electronic waste program so that ever since all of us been stockpiling our old computers in the garage, now there's actually a way to take them to the landfill or to the transfer station, and they can be recycled properly and get the mercury out of them.
Right.
Those are all things that NRCM has been a part of over the years.
Good. So, traditionally on the show, we have a trivia question that we ask. There's only been a couple of right answers since we started the show, and I'm going to you may get half of this correct.
Okay.
Okay. Does Maine have a state fossil? And if it does, what is it?
Oh, boy. I'm sure that
Whoa,
Maine...
whoa. We're going to take a break. We'll go do.
Okay.
Okay. This is WMPG, and I'm David Unger on Nonprofit Insider. And today we're talking to Lisa Pohlman, Executive Director of Natural Resources Council of Maine. Back to the trivia question.
Well, so yes, there's got to be a state fossil.
No, there's got to be, or there is?
There is a state fossil.
Okay.
I can say that with certitude.
Okay.
What it is, I have no idea.
Well, you're 50% right. There is a state fossil, fossilized remains of the ancient plant, and I'm really going to butcher this up. Perticua quadriphenia have been found in the marshes near Mount Katahdin, and that is our state fossil.
Well, there you go.
Deb Danger is even amazed on that one. So, you've been in the nonprofit world. You're going to shoot me for this one, but longer than I have.
Yes, 34 years, yep. In Maine.
In Maine.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than talking about the challenges you're facing, what challenges would you feel somebody coming into the field or a new executive director would have?
Well, I think... obviously finding good people, good solid people to work with is part of everybody's challenge. Most nonprofits are not just one-person shops, so you've got to find a team of whatever the number is. At NRCM, it's 22, but at other shops that I've been at, it's been 3 or 5. And so finding good people to work with is a challenge. It's a good challenge, but and finding good people to be on your board is a constant challenge, and you need people who are willing to roll up their sleeves and care about the organization. It's also a challenge to keep those boundaries clear between what the roles of the board are and what the roles of the staff are, and keep really good communication going about all of those issues. Boards have to feel some ownership. They are the boss of the executive director, and they have to act like that and do evaluations and that kind of thing.
Right.
And I think that over time, you understand the importance of getting your internal policies on paper, so everybody knows who's on first and what the rules are. And I guess those are just some of the basics of working in groups of people and working in institutions, however small or big they are. It's surprising, though, how many organizations don't do all that.
There's one point that you mentioned that I want to come back to. And when you talked about the boundaries between the executive director / staff and the board, can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. We have a wonderful board of directors at NRCM, and even our board of directors has been stepping up more and getting more engaged. We have a very stable staff, and so obviously when you've got a group of people who've been doing this for a long time,
and that's a compliment to you.
Yes, and they do great work, and they are the policy experts on the edge trying to figure out what's the next thing we should do. But the board is still responsible, and they are, we have a fabulous finance committee now that oversees, what we're doing, and we always have, but I feel like they've stepped up in a new way. We're having interesting conversations about divestiture, and, those kinds of things, and, we have an engagement committee that is thinking about how to make sure everybody on the board feels like their talents are being used and that there's some social element, because obviously that's part of why people want to be on the board. So having a very engaged board also then encourages your board to take responsibility for the organization and help you fundraise, which is extremely important. And so we have a development committee, but really everybody needs to help with that. So, people are people. So when you invite people in and they get very engaged in the organization, and sometimes you have to figure out, okay, wait a minute, that's actually my job, and that's actually not your job, or that's your job, and that's not my job. And
right, open communications
yes,
is absolutely
and
critical.
Open communications is really the way to work through those things.
How long do you think, I'm going to use the term newbie for a new executive director who's gung-ho, ready to get started. How long do you think it should take them to evolve in the type of structure you just described?
Well, again, it will depend on what their funding stream is and how quickly they're ramping up or whether they're stepping into an already established organization. But I kind of figure it takes a good 3 years to get really solid on your feet
Right.
in whatever role you've got. And you shouldn't panic before that, and you shouldn't get too comfortable afterwards either.
Comfort's never a good thing. What do you think some of the challenges of fundraising are in the state?
Well,
Because you fundraise statewide.
I do. I would say that people are very generous in Maine, but there's not a lot of money in Maine. And there's a lot of competition for those funds in Maine. And I think, you just have to be really good at making your case. And we have the benefit of the history of the
Right.
effectiveness. So I don't have any complaints about, our fundraising program or how difficult it is or anything. I feel like we do a great job and we have a lot of really wonderful, longtime loyal members. And obviously we always need more, but, we're doing well and our reputation helps us all the time.
So you raise a little over $2 million, if I
That's right. Yeah.
every year.
Every year.
Wow. If you had to describe one program or one aspect of the council that is really your showcase, what would it be?
Now, you mean my personal showcase or the council's showcase?
Let's do both.
Okay. Well, the council has so many things to showcase.
That's why we brought you on the show.
Right. Oh gosh. Well, some of those historic pieces that I mentioned, but just to pick one, I mean, the fact that right now we are restoring Maine's largest river, the Penobscot River, by taking out 2 dams and building a fish passage around the other. Folks may have seen the movie Damnation, which we're starting to show around, and it is about the removal of dams and what dams have done to fisheries. I just went up to Benton Falls this week, which has a fish passage where you can go in and actually see it work. And those folks will tell you that the restoration of the alewives that are running right now and the eels and has been remarkable since we took out the Edwards Dam in Augusta and the Fort Halifax Dam. And so this is on the Sebasticook River. So seeing nature come back, if we just get out of the way, is so remarkable and so moving that's one of the easy ones to point to. And I guess, there's been a lot of people and a lot of organizations involved in the Penobscot Project, but I claim my little piece of it because we just started to talk about it when I joined the board in 2000. We just started to talk about it publicly at that point. So I feel like I've grown up at NRCM, and here we are. 2 dams are out, and this summer we're starting the fish passage, and what an amazing feat.
Oh, that's great. So you get into an elevator, and standing next to you, both on the first floor, is Maine's largest philanthropic individual. They've never heard of you. They have no idea. You hit 5, they hit 1. What are you going to tell them in that 30 seconds?
I'm going to say, if you love Maine, and if you have a connection to Maine, then you want to fund the organization that is protecting the air here, the water here, the forests here, the shorelines here, the lakes here. You want to be a part of the organization that has taken care of this place, restored this place, and will continue to do so for decades to come.
So you're here for the long run.
Oh, we're so here for the long run.
Do you have any questions for me?
Well, I know this is a show about nonprofit organizations. So you've interviewed lots of us, and what are you finding are the particular challenges? Is there anything that I've said that sort of fits into your scheme as you've been listening to many different directors talk?
The themes are basically the same. You put it very beautifully when you talked about the boundaries between the board and the staff and the executive director. A lot of people have hedged around that rather than having the open communication about what's the appropriate decision making and who should be making the decision, the decision, and what's the process to make the decision. Fundraising obviously is the biggest theme for everybody. The competition, as you said, is just enormous. So, those are the two big things that I've been picking up.
Well, I think that, again, the people of Maine are quite philanthropic. And,
No question.
And they're generous, and not everybody can give to everything, but people manage, each of us individually figure out who we want to give to. And I think as long as we keep going that direction and people feel like they're getting results, they're going to support you.
What project do you think should have happened but didn't?
Well,
I opened up the Pandora's box. Huh?
Well, without putting too fine a point on it, we've had a challenging 4 years in Augusta as the leading environmental advocacy organization. And we've had, things are never settled in the policy world. You think, we took care of the bottle bill, and
Right.
that was back in the 70s. Well, no, actually, you can end up revisiting that at any point. But the door was swung wide open for a lot of possibilities of rolling back our environmental protections, and we had to fight tooth and nail. So right at the moment, we're really trying to push solar energy as, a great new opportunity. It's not brand new, but Maine's behind the rest of our New England neighbors. We've got a ton of sun, and it's very productive. And don't think for a minute just because it gets foggy or we have dark nights that we don't have sun. We do. And we just came this close to reinstating an incentive that we had for our solar energy, and it was vetoed by the governor. And although there was all kinds of support for it in the legislature, there was not enough support to override the governor's veto. That's just one little example of something that should have happened. And that's all right. We'll be back to fight another day.
But as you said earlier, it's making Maine's individuals in Maine's lives easier and better.
Absolutely, absolutely, and protecting this place that we love.
Good. Well, how can someone get in touch with you if they wanted to volunteer, make a gift, or any of the above that we talked about?
Well, it's nrcm.org. You can find our newly redesigned website. It's beautiful. You should check it out. And the phone number's there, and you're welcome to contact me directly, Pohlman at nrcm.org. You can find my email there, and always happy to hear what people have on their minds.
Well, Lisa, thank you for coming in. It was a great half hour. It flew by for me, and hopefully it did for you.
Thank you so much.
Our pleasure. Next week, we're going to have Patsy Murphy, the Animal Rescue League of Greater Portland's executive director. If this was TV, we'd definitely be asking her to bring in some little visitors with us, but who knows what she'll be bringing in. The music appears courtesy of Mike Hubbard. You can find it on www.michaelhubbardmusic.com. Check out Mike's website to see where he's playing this weekend. Thanks to Deb Danger, and MPI's executive engineer. You can catch Deb on Morning Street, Fridays at 6:30. If you know of a nonprofit that should be on the show, please email me at mpi@davidunger.net.